What's up, everybody? Welcome to Bullish Rippers. This is Evan, better known as Stock Market News on Twitter. Every Monday at 9:20 a.m. Eastern and Friday at 4 p.m., myself and my co-host, Wolf_Financial, also known as Gav, put on these spaces to help you guys get ready for the week ahead in the market and then get caught up on the week just passed. Our goal is to educate, inform, and hopefully entertain you guys a little bit. We really appreciate you tuning in, and I hope you enjoy. Yeah, we're just gonna get a couple minutes to get going here. I see we got Wolf
Yo,
Financial up here. Gav, how you doing?
I'm good. We're literally pulling up to the Airbnb like right now. So I may have to hop off
You're good.
for like 10, 20 minutes while I like meet the host and like get moved in and shit.
Gotcha. Go do your thing. Yeah, appreciate you. But yeah, Stock Talk. I see we got you up here as well.
Okay.
How you doing, man?
I'll be back on soon, okay? I hope to. I hope
Perfect.
to. I'm not sure. All right, talk to you.
I'm doing good, man. How are you?
I'm chilling, dude. End of the week's always nice. It's Friday. Good feeling. Good feeling.
Had
How
a
was your
long
week in the
weekend too,
market?
thank God.
Yeah, dude. Honestly, though, I'm kind of. I had that, couple breaks last week. Not last week. End of December. I'm feeling refreshed. I'm at the point now where I'm dreading the day off.
Really? I
I
wanted to
mean,
go.
no. No, I'm not actually, but like, I'll be bored a little bit. What am I gonna do?
I don't know, like get a life. I'm just kidding.
That is no.
Do
Listen,
some-
it's a fair answer.
no, I mean I'm just kidding. But I mean, yeah, like I don't know. I like having those Mondays off sometimes. It gives you a little extra time to prepare on the weekend.
100%, dude. So we should have exclusive joining us pretty early on. I know he has to go around 4:20, so we were gonna try and get him in on the early part. But Stock Talk, it looks like it's just gonna be me and you at the start here. We had Wolf, my co-host, ditching me. Actually, let me get you up here as a co-host right now. I sent out a couple other requests on people. We should have some other good people joining in throughout. But Stock Talk, let's start through this. Dig in. Any names or any moves or whatever kind of really stand out for you this week?
Yeah, I mean there were a couple things this week. It was mostly, just sporadic plays. I was pretty patient, just based on all the catalysts that we had this week. And I wasn't too aggressive with my sizing at all, but we had a couple penny stock trades, couple high redemption trades. I traded Rev B twice, which was nice. It ran from the eights to the tens twice. That was a nice trade. Somebody in our Discord posted about GMVD the other day. I took a little trade on that as well. That went up nicely. It was up stock was up like 69% this week. So that was a nice play. I didn't get the full move, but I did get some off that one. We had IoT, which was a new IPO, and I got into that based on the upgrades we saw on Monday, and that ended up having a nice run. I got out of that position. Other than that, we had a nice rebound in Planet. Looks like it's still struggling with that 650 level. I would like to see it get above 650 and then go ahead and test 730. Gets above 730, I think there's a chance it gaps up to 945, so I'm keeping my eye on that one. eCore was another penny trade. We did a day trade on that. That was a 70% trade on the equity in our Discord as well. Yeah, so a couple of those plays. I got lucid puts today. We traded FATH a little bit, which had a nice move today at about a 15% move. So a lot of different tickers this week that I traded. Just wasn't too aggressive with my sizing, but still made a nice amount of money trading those, and it helped with the drawdowns in my long-term portfolio because this wasn't a great week for my long-term portfolio, but my trading portfolio did great.
Awesome. So yesterday we were kind of doing similar spaces, and we were getting a lot of questions about Lucid, and really kind of understanding what's happening there. So I know there's something coming up with shares unlocking and share expiry, and I know it has to do a lot with the Saudi Public Investment Fund. But could you give me a little bit more on what's happening with the Lucid situation?
Yeah, so the Saudi PIF, who's the biggest investor in Lucid, they own a majority of the float. Don't quote me on the percentage, but I believe they own 62 to 64% of the float. So they own the vast majority of the float. On the 19th next week, which will be Monday is going to be, what date would the 19th be? I'm out of sync right now. Saturday the 15th, Sunday,
Tuesday?
Monday 17th, Wednesday, I guess the 19th. I don't know. I'm not looking at a calendar. I'm just doing it off the top of my head. I don't even know what date it is today, to be honest. What, the 14th today?
I think you're right. I think you're right.
Yeah, so I'm looking for that, unlock to bring some downside. I just think it's going to create a lot of overhang. The PIF has 1.2 billion shares that are being unlocked. I know when people hear that, they think $1.2 billion. No, 1.2 billion shares, which is a hell of a lot of shares, no matter what stock you're talking about. So, unlocking those, I've tried to do the math on it. So, if 1.2 billion shares unlocked and they want to maintain a majority stake, which I assume is pretty reasonable assumption to make, to say that they want to keep a majority stake. So if they do, then what we'll see is roughly 90 to 125 million shares being sold on the open market, which I don't see a scenario where that doesn't cause downside. I'm not saying the stock is gonna implode. I just think that it's very hard to make a case that it won't trade down. In response to that, and another thing that kind of increased my conviction on it is the rally that we've seen in Lucid this week, right? Like, I mean, if you look from the start of the week to the end of the week, I mean, or over the last 7 days, it's only up, 3.5%. But we saw on the 11th, it rallied big all the way to 47, and then kind of tapered off. But I feel like it's been getting pumped a bit, headed into this unlock. And I know that a lot of that is from retail and the article that some kid wrote today about, maybe they'll do a deal with Apple, which was entirely speculative. He didn't have any basis to say that. But, I don't think that's personally going to happen. It could happen. It'd be cool to see it happen. But, I'm not going to depend on that to long the stock. And so the beauty for me in this situation is I already own shares. So, if the stock, if the stock rallies instead of dumping, the unrealized gains I make off my shares will compensate for the realized losses I take on the puts. And if it does tank, I'm going to just hold my shares anyway. If there's any relative strength headed into the 19th, I'll sell calls into that. So I left one of my tools on the table. Like I could have sold calls on my entire position this week, but I didn't. I just scaled into puts this week. And then my plan is if we see strength on Tuesday headed into the unlock, then I'll sell calls then. It's kind of like a backup option if we see relative strength heading to the unlock. But you know, anybody who knows what they're talking about knows that 1.2 billion shares being added to a float is just a lot. Regardless of how many they sell, it's going to create overhang, and if they do sell 90 to 125 million shares, that's going to create downside as well. So it's pretty simple thesis for me. I know it's a crowded trade. I know the premiums on some of those puts have gotten pretty inflated. So, entries are not so straightforward. But, the reality is I just take what's given to me. Like when I see an obvious catalyst, a downside catalyst or an upside catalyst on the stock, whether or not I am a fan of the company or not is not important. To me, it's about playing the price action. And, this isn't necessarily based off the chart. Like, depending on the way you look at the Lucid chart, the chart could still look bullish to you, but adding 1.2 billion shares of potentially sellable float is a lot. And so, coming into that, I just have only one thesis about that, which is there's going to be some downside. I don't have a downside price target. I'm not going to say, I think just looking at the chart based on the weekly supports we set through the last 7 days, you would assume that it's going to drop to at least 40, but I think that there's more downside. I think that there's a good chance it could fall to 35 or 36. So I could be wrong, but I've sized my positions in a way where even if I am wrong, I'm wrong small, and if I'm right big. So that's all that matters.
We'll keep this brief because I see we got exclusive up here, but are you surprised at all that Lucid hasn't been moving lower more into this, into this news? I feel like the stock market typical thing is, when we have an event, there'll be a run up into it. For this type of event, maybe there would be a run up into it, and then when the event actually happens, the move has kind of already taken place and it kind of goes the other way. But it seems like we haven't really had that too much here. Are you a little surprised that the stock has been moving lower?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't expect it to rally like this, but I'm also not surprised because this kind of stuff typically happens. It's in the, I mean, think about it. If the PIF is going to sell, they want to sell at a favorable price, right? So, it's in their benefit for the stock to rally right now. But headed into that unlock, I just don't see a scenario where they don't sell at least some. I can't see that scenario panning out. I mean, they've owned shares long before the company went public. The cost basis on those shares are probably fractional. I don't even know what, I haven't done the math on the cost basis, but it's got to be. I mean, they've got to be up thousands of percent on those initial shares. So, I mean, do they like the company? Yeah. Do they want to own a majority stake in the company? Yeah, but they can still maintain a 51% stake in the company while selling a significant amount of shares. So, yeah, I didn't expect it to rally the way that it did this week, but I'm also not surprised. And it gave me a better opportunity to scale into puts this week because, you know, as we all know, the stock rallies, the premiums on the puts get cheaper, but it's a crowded trade, and you're not wrong about that. And that could cause it to backfire, but that's why I'm not sizing aggressively. I didn't put 500K into puts. Like I scaled in, run a reasonable position size relative to my equity position, and it's basically essentially just a hedge because I do have the equity, and if I'm wrong and the equity rallies, then I benefit there, and if I'm right, then I take some temporary unrealized losses on the equity, not outright losses, but just lose some of the unrealized gains, and then I have the direct profit I'll get out of the put. So I feel fine with the decision.
Yeah, I came in later. Are you guys talking about Lucid?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't know if you
Yeah.
know about it exclusive, but there's a big unlock coming next week on the 19th. I don't know if you've heard about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I played calls in the beginning of the week, and then I rolled up with just profits up to $50 calls just in case it kept moving against, preparation for that. But then it tanked so the 50s failed. But that was to be expected. I seen you were loading up some puts, man. Congrats.
Yeah, I got puts today. Yeah, the puts today, the ones I added today are down like 7 or 8%, which isn't much. I'm not worried about that. I mean, the stock rallied a little more after I started adding them, but it's tapered out now. I mean, I just don't see a scenario where it doesn't trade down after the 19th. It might not trade down on the 19th, but after the 19th, I expect them to start selling some of their position. I mean, 1.2 billion shares is a lot of fucking shares.
Yeah.
100% is. It's kind of crazy that it's all just happening on one day. I'm surprised there isn't like, okay, let's stagger it a little or do something like that. But whatever.
It's only that much because it's one holder, right? Like, so the initial pipe unlock for Lucid last year was just a regular pipe unlock, but this is an unlock specific to the Saudi PIF, who owns a majority stake. So this is like pertaining to their shares specifically. Well, not only their shares. This is pertaining to all investors who invested in Lucid before the SPAC deal. So this is like longtime investors in Lucid who have been in it, who are up massively on the positions, right? So that even, I think feeds more into the thesis of them being more likely to sell. But we'll see. Again, I could be wrong. I sized it appropriately to where if I am wrong, I'm not going to whine about it. I'll take the loss on those puts if I am wrong. But like I said, I own equity to offset that if I am wrong. So I feel fine about it.
Yeah, and then
Awesome.
immediately after, then the 23rd of next year, you got to watch out for Churchill. So we could go for the same thing next January. So that'd be fun.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and I expect the dip to get bought, but I'm not going to get greedy. If the stock trades down, 15, 20%, those puts are going to skyrocket and I'll be out of them. I'm not going to get greedy and look for like a major downside target. But I think I cannot see a scenario where it doesn't trade down at least a little bit. And I always try to do that. Anytime I take a position, I try to look at, if I'm wrong, how wrong will I be and what will happen? Like always look at the risk as well. And I just can't make an upside case for the stock following the 19th. The dump might only last 3 or 4 days and then it might rally. That's totally, completely possible. But it's also going to create a huge overhang on the float. There's going to be a lot more shares in the float than there are now, which will make it heavier to move. There's a lot of factors. So you have overhang, you have downside selling pressure, you're gonna have large block sales if they do decide to sell. So there's a number of factors that can affect it.
Perfect. We'll come back to Lucid. There's so much with that story and maybe some good stuff to break down. Exclusive, I do know you had a tight schedule. You got a call coming up of your own. I would love to throw the floor over to you a little bit, hear how your week was in the market, any stocks that maybe stood out, possibly any setups we were watching towards the end of the day, anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, this week was a crazy week just in general. You know, you had a lot of news, of course, around the whole Lucid lockout next week. You had a lot of news around interest rate hikes. You had all these, events on the economic calendar. There was a lot of things that were being discussed, at the beginning of the week. And I know Stock Talk Weekly was talking about it. There was a lot of people discussing these volatility expectations in these underlying assets that people need to be prepared for, because apparently now we live in the age where, especially if you're an options trader, it's not as bad if you're common stock, but if you're an options trader, you have to be fully aware that these reactionary moves that spike in volatility are because of retail slowly increasing their presence in the option market. So that's why you see these swings. Like Netflix is a perfect example. The technical aspect of Netflix. So we played puts today to the downside, right? And of course we got the flush. Puts paid out great, but technically speaking, there's a technical and a fundamental thesis behind calls and puts for today, or puts for today and calls for next week, or calls for the end of the day. So from the technical aspect, it was at a perfect support, and driving the price down to that support is going to be where the market makers make their bids. It's going to be where it's the ideal situation on a major downtrend break to release perfect news, just like they did. Every single time you see a setup like this, it is almost as transparent as you can see anything else. It's just a matter of what could possibly happen to reverse the market or the specific name. And then you see it was like clockwork. We were like, watch 2:30, 3 o'clock. I bet you there'll be something with Netflix, and then the market in general. And then you see all day everything's getting bashed, battered down. We get a rally up, we get a rally down, we get a rally up, rally down. And then at 3:03 to 3:05, you see a lot of the algos kick in, and then by 3:15, you see a majority of the liquidations in retail happen, and people are immediately stopped out of their positions, and then the market makers lift the market. Everyone's bought the dip, they've all loaded their positions, they've released the relative articles, and then the markets move. And that's exactly what happens almost every single Friday, or at any single monthly option expiration, or any type of major company-wide move that's made in the market specifically for, one sector in general. And, these kind of moves are predictable if you understand the technical side and you understand the fundamental side, because fundamentally, Netflix, that was the perfect thing for them to do, announce an increase in prices. They have their earnings next week. That is a perfect fundamental move. And I haven't looked at the balance sheet and everything on Netflix because I haven't been prepared for the earnings until next week. I'll do that on Sunday. But I'm pretty sure that leverages them into the perfect ideal position going into earnings next week. And there's always a reason why these are released ahead of time or released at the timing of it. So it's everything is priced in, everything is expected to move in the specific direction that's predetermined. So it's just a matter of being able to look at the charts and look at the relative strength and look at the sector. And, if I'm not mistaken, communications was battered last week, and then this week communications was up. And I mean, it's just all these, these moves in the market, as unpredictable as they seem, are really more predictable than you would think. And, and that's part of the benefit of being able to play defensive and manage risk in either direction. So, a lot of people, and I talk about this a lot in spaces, and I know a lot of people talk about it too, other than me, but you cannot have a bias especially in the markets, and especially right now. We live in a very interesting time where the market volatility is really, really unpredictable. And seasonality and specific names and even sectors is off. And I'm having to adjust personally. I've only been trading for about 10, almost 11 years, and I've had to adjust my trading style maybe 2 to 3 times a year since I want to say about 2018, 2019. And it's just, and of course, when the pandemic hit, the influx of money coming in from retail just made things even worse. So, um, the market in general, it's just, you just have to have a plan, and you have to have, and that's what Stock Talk Weekly was just talking about with Lucid. He's got a plan. He's got a plan to execute. So you have an entry and exit strategy and an overall plan and a thesis behind what you're doing and why you're doing it and how you're going to do it. So I feel like I got off topic, but approaching the markets, that's what you need to be doing.
Nah, dude, that was perfect. We love the pathway. We love the off topic, and honestly, it led me to the question that I am going to ask. Because pivoting and being fluid, not just trading on what you think, trading on what the market's giving you, is a really important concept. But sometimes it's really difficult to know. Okay, it's time to start changing. It's time to do whatever, or it's time to start doing this style that's kind of maybe working a little bit less. How do you kind of start to know that it's time to do that pivot, or like kind of in that mindset of that area where you're like, okay, time to pivot, time to do whatever? I did see exclusive actually got kicked off mid question, unfortunately. Let's see if I can get it back up. We'll give it like 20 seconds on getting him back up, then we'll move on if we need to. But yeah, I did definitely think it was a great question. Exclusive always comes up with amazing points, and he's a really great trader. So definitely should be following him and checking him out. But I will keep us moving in the, just to keep us moving. Jay, I see we got you up here. How you doing, man? How was your week in the
Hey,
market?
pretty good, man. Great week in the market. Dumb luck, I think, just given that we were short 11 different SPACs, including D-SPACs at various points over the past 2 weeks. The NAV SPACs, obviously names like ESSC hit, highs for the month. And I know that there are other guys who are in that now as well. But we've been in that since November. There are a bunch of interesting names, and companies are getting a lot cheaper, which I like. And there are a bunch of preferred stocks that I'm in, that pay 7% dividends that haven't moved at all. If you look at the leveraged loan market, high yield bond market, you're close to all-time highs. So there are parts of the market that haven't really moved at all. It's, FinTwit is really focused broadly on a handful of 120 stocks, everything from, high growth to the major biotech names to SaaS, EVs, and a lot of those names you can make a lot of money trading in and out. But you have to understand when when it's the right time to just get out of the way, because, we haven't seen the force of the Fed turning on us since 2018. And I would bet that 70% of the guys on FinTwit probably weren't trading at that time. Because I used to be on Twitter. I had another account, and I used to follow macro guys, and there weren't this many financial services guys on Twitter at that time. And we've talked about this for months now. Individual investor volume as a percentage of total volume, it went from 17 to 19% before Schwab went to no fee trading, to 35%. So we're at a really interesting time where a bunch of investors who are learning, and they should learn, they should, try to perform well in the market, are seeing for the first time what happens when there isn't QE or the Fed put behind the market. And it's resulted in rotation away from names that, have rallied. And, Stock Talk and Stock Market News, we've been discussing this. I've been talking about it since May of last year. Not that I made any moves, but saying that it was going to happen. And we've come to a point where we might be oversold in a few names, but the fundamentals are also starting to roll over at the very early stages. So if you look at retail sales were down 1.9% for the month of December, and 2.3% ex auto and gas. Why is that? Well, it's because the government inflation numbers are just wrong. They're actually lower than real inflation. 30% of the component of CPI, which is a basket of goods that we target, is rent equivalent, is owner equivalent rent. Owner equivalent rent is a made up number. And all it is, polling owners to see how much they could theoretically raise rents year over year for properties they own. Why would we use such an antiquated survey when we have real, with technology today, you can pull any multifamily group association across any location in the United States and get real time rent estimates. And if you take real rent increases year over year, and just as one anecdote, doorman buildings in New York City have seen rents up 23% year over year, non-doorman buildings 7% year over year, and owner equivalent rent is up much less. So if you think about it, like real inflation is well above 11%. And what does that mean for lower income people? It means, for median income and lower income people, that they have less disposable income. Even though wages have gone up and minimum wages have gone up, wages have not gone up as much as the prices for food, prices for rent, prices for automobiles, just basic necessities have gone up. So that's something that I thought was surprising, and it was well below what the market expectations were. Another thing that was interesting was if you look at the bank earnings today, everyone was rotating into banks. Well, that while everyone was rotating into banks, I was kind of buying my REIT prefs. And the reason why was banks aren't actually cheap. They may continue to rally a little bit this year if interest rates go higher. And that's, we'll see. Because if growth flows, then interest rates may not go much higher on the long end of the curve. And the curve may just flatten, which we can revisit. I don't want to spend too much time on it. But, banks sold off today because comp has to go up, right? Comp has to go up because 3.3 million people retired early and there's no migration because of what happened in the prior administration and because of COVID, right? So you have at a point where there's a competition for labor, and because of innovation, which is great, the same people are competing at the banks for jobs as they are. I mean, employers are competing in fintech, right, which didn't exist in a big way 10 years ago. They're competing in big tech. They're competing in startups. They're competing from crypto companies. They're competing from prop desks. They're competing from hedge funds and private equity. And all of those individuals are the same guys that are usually recruited at banks. So banks are now going to, state schools, and I've heard of a bank even going to community college to recruit people because they can't find people. And, so you're going to see comp expenses up at all the big investment banks while trading revenues are coming down and lending is coming down. And you just take a step back from the banks and think about what's happening in like trucking. In trucking, they're hiring teenagers because the supply chain issues haven't gone away. It's not people don't like working in trucking industry because you're away from your family. And there's a lack of household formation, new people in the labor force. So you have these bottlenecks that haven't gone away on the West Coast, Port of LA. Biden said, let's open it up 24/7 so we could improve the supply chain issues. Guess what? Those are unionized people. They said, F you to Biden. And we have supply chain issues haven't gotten that much better. If you look at the China containerized shipping index, which I posted on my Twitter, that index is at all-time highs. Everyone,
Jay,
go ahead.
can I cut in quickly and ask a question? We can keep it rolling. With inflation, for me, simple-minded, this is not my area of expertise, but when I do look at it, I really don't think you can ignore the supply chain issues and everything that's going on as like the real, cause of it. And the problem is, that in the long term, this may end up being Jerome Powell's favorite word, transitory. But the reason it didn't end up being that in the short term is because these supply chain problems have continued to, be around and last. So, like, really, we're getting some really high numbers here. But as the supply chain starts to normalize, a lot of it will be kind of worked away and worked itself away. There's still a piece of it that is, inflation that's not just from the supply chains problem, that's from money printing and other stuff. But overall, the majority of it will kind of work itself out in the long term. Am I wrong for thinking that, or kind of
That's
what's your thoughts
absolutely
on it?
right. But what is transitory? So we were talking about this starting March of 2021. People said, "Oh, it's transitory. It'll be done in the summer." Okay, then the summer came. People said, "Don't worry, it's transitory. It's going to be done by the winter." Then the winter came, and now it's transitory. It's going to be done by the spring. In reality, every industry has different issues and they're going to be resolved at different points in time. So, for example, kind of the retail issues and stocking shelves, that might go away first. Um, that has been extended because of Omicron in places like Hong Kong and China, and specifically like Guangdong manufacturing areas and the ports have been shut down because China has a zero COVID policy. Because their vaccine isn't that great, everyone knows it, and they can't afford for the entire country to get sick because we know how contagious Omicron is. So that is going to result in probably 2 or 3, 4, 5 months more supply chain issues when it comes to container rates, when it comes to what we're importing from East Asia. The second, when it comes to semiconductor issues might last for a year or two, right? Because it's a complicated supply chain where you have fabs, you have packaging, and you have, finished product. You have 3 or 4 different nodes where these chips have to be sent before they're packaged and they come to final end consumers and, in developed markets. And, that just might take longer to resolve itself. Like I was at an auto dealer for BMW and they only gave me one key fob for my car because they don't have semi chips to put it in a second key. And this is a luxury vehicle, right? So different parts of the supply chain, it's not all going to get fixed at once. And, the interesting thing about that is it could take, until the end of the year before we see some of the supply chain issues go away completely. And but that doesn't mean inflation won't go lower. So the simple math is inflation is a year-over-year construct looking at a basket of goods. Unless that basket of goods actually changes, right? If prices just stayed flat, right, from now until next year, inflation would be zero. So just using math, in the second half of the year, inflation should be much lower. That doesn't mean it won't still be elevated at 3-4%. 4% inflation is enough for the Fed to continue raising for the next 2 years. So, and it's not just inflation that's becoming the issue now. It's speculation and it's an imbalance in the financial system that we dealt with because of COVID. And it was probably the right thing to do, helicopter money plus fiscal stimulus. But now, it's very obvious we have 30 trillion of debt. We have 9 trillion at the Fed. That's not sustainable. And we have to bring that down. Um, and at the same time, 1.6 trillion of student loans that are going to start being paid in May. You have an eviction moratorium that's gone, and you have child tax credit, which for some people is giving them like 30, 40,000 a year, plus the other stimulus they're getting into their pockets. So it's just, some things to think about, right? Fiscal monetary stimulus is going away, and you have a number of investors that have never seen a downturn of more than 10% in the stock market. So just, there are actually a lot of positives as well. I think growth is going to be, pretty strong this year. I think that, you know, energy, industrials, those types of companies are going to have tailwinds. Companies with pricing power are going to have tailwinds. Higher up in the capital structure, preferreds, loans, bonds are probably going to do well because default rates aren't going to go up much higher until probably 2023. So there are a lot of positives. I just started with the not so good details because everyone had been ignoring them for so long.
Awesome. Thank you, Jay. Would love to. We're getting everyone up here now. I see Danny requesting. We got Wolf in here as well now. Just want to give a quick shout out back to Exclusive. He was having some connectivity issues. We were trying a bunch of stuff for him to get back up. He did want to apologize to everyone, although it's Twitter's problem, not his. But I just want to make sure that was out there for him. Make sure you're following Exclusive and all the other speakers that we have up here. I will get us around to the two people that came up, but a news story that just came out, and my tinfoil hat is firmly on. Roundhill, if you guys didn't know, they have a couple ETFs, and one of them was the Metaverse ETF that had the ticker of META, Meta, and they just announced that they're changing that ticker to METV. And, I also looked to another company that changed their name recently, Facebook. They changed their name to Meta, and they were going to change to the ticker MVRS, but they initially delayed it. They never really gave a reason for it. Tinfoil hat firmly on. Maybe Meta, Facebook is about to get the Meta ticker. So I am definitely watching out for that. I know absolutely nothing. Tinfoil hat is firmly on for that, but I think that would be really cool. And with that, I did just want to ask a quick question, and then we'll keep it moving. But really, when I think about this, I see how important is a ticker to a company, and I would love to maybe get opinions on that. I would love to maybe throw it to Stock Talk for his quick thought on that. Like, is something like Facebook and Meta being able to get the ticker in theory, Meta have a significant impact as opposed to having the MVRS, or is it kind of just ancillary? No answer from Stock Talk. I see Danny's hands up. Perfect pivot. Danny, after that, I would love to get an introduction too.
Yeah,
How would you leave
absolutely.
the market?
Well, as coming from somebody who is in branding and basically has been in marketing my whole life, I think it's huge. So it's all about brand recognition. And, Facebook as a company has been FB, forever, right? But now with the shift to Metaverse, I think it makes perfect sense. It makes natural sense specifically from a branding standpoint. I mean, it's just, it'll be synonymous with the metaverse. So I think anybody who has that ticker and is in the metaverse space, it just makes sense. It's kind of like, it's probably a bad analogy, but Virgin Galactic having SPCE as their ticker, right? It says what they do. When you just have a ticker that is the letters of the company or something that just doesn't resonate with what the brand is or what the space that they're in, for lack of a better term, then, I think that doesn't really add any brand equity or value to the business. But from a brand equity and a branding and a marketing standpoint, I think that would be a huge win for Facebook to get the META ticker.
Love it. Definitely do agree. And while we're on you, Danny, I would love to kind of hear intro into how your week was in the market. Anything specifically stand out? I know, when we're talking today it tends to kind of shine the brightest in there. So anything else happened today as well? Would love to hear that as well.
Yeah, it was really quiet week for me. Didn't really take any longs. I did have, I think maybe QCOM was my only overnight hold from a short swing perspective, and that played out fairly well this week. But outside of that, it was a pretty quiet week. Price action was really, really choppy. So the swing traders and position traders out there were probably like a net zero or maybe even a net negative for the week. But from a day trading and a scalping perspective, I mean, the volatility was really, really nice. I mean, if you're a scalper, this was your week to make some bucks, because there was just a lot of volatility almost every day. I mean, just look at the daily chart for SPY. I'm calling it up right now. I mean, we started off the week, let's see, we opened at 462. We had a high on Wednesday of 473, and we're ending the week at 461. So it was pretty wild week. Interesting close too on SPY today. So we closed right under the trend line, but we did have a positive close. So I think that's a good. It's not great. I mean, I would have liked to see a much higher close, but we closed green, and so I think that's positive. But I think the underlying theme is, Wall Street's coming for tech, and money is flowing into other sectors. I'm taking a look at the 30-day trend, and Jets, is up 11.7% in the last 30 days. So that's your airline tickers. Only ticker better than that, or the only sector better than that, is energy, XLE. And as you know, we've been talking about that for weeks now. So it'll be interesting. JP Morgan didn't have the greatest of earnings. So does that carry over into next week when the rest of banks report? I think that's where my eyes are going to be. And I do think that if we do have mixed or bad earnings for banks and for financials, I think that doesn't really bode too well for the broader market. And it's just going to be kind of par for course. I'm going to be just continuing to watch where the relative strength is there's been great day trades every single day. Every day there's a different ticker that's showing strength and bucking the trends of the market. So I think for me, par for the course. That's exactly what I'll do next week until we see tech start to stabilize and possibly consolidate a bit, and then we'll see where the relative strength on a potential rebound might be. But I'm not deaf to tech at this point. It's stocks can't go up and sectors can't go up at all times. They do have to pull back. It's very healthy for the market. And I think when this is all said and done, you're going to see a lot of stocks that have really good potential long entries that are going to present themselves. So that's basically what I'm going to be watching for the next couple of weeks, especially going into earnings.
Hey,
Awesome.
so
Yeah,
Pup
Jay, go.
was referring to the reopening names. There's another group of reopening names that did extremely well today, and that was the Macau focused casinos. If you look at Wynn, WYNN, or if you look at LVS, Las Vegas Sands, the licensing that's been offered to them, 10-year licenses with 3-year renewals, is a lot better than the market thought. China, which controls Macau, would give these non-domestic casinos. So when you're looking at reopening names, those names are kind of based, and they're still near their 2-year bottoms. So it might be interesting to take a look at those. We've done some work on those as well. And you also mentioned the banks. I'm with you there. The banks, going into this earnings season weren't especially cheap because a lot of money had already flowed into them. And if you are interested in a really quick way to value banks, you can look at price to book value, or forward price to or price to book versus forward ROE, or price to book versus ROE, and draw a cross-sectional graph of the banks. That's a good way to value them. The regional banks might do better than the investment banks. Just something to look out for next week, because they don't have to, they're not paying people millions of dollars a year, to manage trading desks, and they're not paying investment bankers. They have their, their cost inflation might be a little bit more manageable. So it might be something interesting to look at.
Awesome, Jay. Thank you for that. Thank you for the interjection as well. As always, Danny, thank you for that as well. We'll kind of keep us cycling. I got to get to my other co-host who is just moving in Airbnb. Maybe we can get some channel checks on Airbnb and some of how the hosts are doing. But Wolf, how are you doing? How was your week in the market? How was your week in the Airbnb?
I just got into this Airbnb, and another one. This one's pretty nice. I'm testing out the Wi-Fi right now, so we'll see. It's not the fastest that I've seen, but the host is very gracious. It looks good. A week in the market. Let's see. Currently, I'm on my week to market. I am legitimately flat. I am down $9 on the week. So I dropped a low of down 4.5%. That was on the 10th, so that was 4 days ago. I guess that was on like maybe Tuesday. And then my high, I was up 4%, which was, I guess, 2 days ago. And then it basically gave it all back yesterday. And then today I'm up 0.17%. So a very, very flat week, which is fine. I took a couple of trades, really not much. I took REVB, which was like a high risk play, which I just got stopped out of. That was just commons. I did play ESSC, which I know a lot of people played. I just got in, got out. I literally bought calls on ESSC I think it was like 3 days ago, I guess. I bought them at like 3:59 EST, and then I sold them 30 minutes into the open the next morning for, I don't know, 5-10% gain. Like that was my plan exactly with them. That's what I wanted to do. That's what I wanted to happen. It worked perfectly. And outside of those, I kind of second guessed myself. I went to buy SARK calls yesterday, kind of midday, and I actually ended up canceling the limit order that I put in. Just a little sad because they went up about 30-40%, but win some, lose some, and I just was about to do some other stuff. And I know that if you're going to be trading options like that, you'll definitely want to be keeping a close eye on the screen, just having a good understanding there. But yeah, I mean, it's been a pretty busy week with like external stuff outside, so I haven't been trading so much. Again, CST is completely throwing off my trading with market open and everything there. But yeah, it was pretty cool. I'm not going to complain about having a flat week. Also, in regards to what you were saying about Meta, good to hear that Roundhill is getting those big corporate bucks. Again, speculation, of course, but hey, money moves, money talks. I completely agree with Danny. It's all about branding. Like we've seen this so many times. Snapchat turning to Snap and a bunch of others. Like it's completely about branding. Your name is your image. It just is your reputation. We know that here on FinTwit with how we pick our names. I think we're all very particular to them. I don't think any of us that are up here have changed the names on our account in a long time for good reason. Once you establish it, you want to build that out for a long time purpose. So I think with Facebook, they're looking, hey, what's our name going to be for the next 100, 200 years, right? Like this isn't like, a small move for them. They're looking, I know Mark Zuckerberg, not like know him, but like know his type of style. He's very, very big picture. And apparently this has been in the works for a long time. And I think the fact that they went and delayed this is very calculated. So I certainly wouldn't be surprised to see them taking that ticker. And yeah, that's all my comments on that for now. But, appreciate you holding down the fort for the first 30 minutes here. This was definitely exciting and, a good way to cap off a pretty solid week. Oh, I made some money on NFTs this week. So there was that.
Love it, love it. So I did see a picture last night of that seemed to hint that you were with Stock Talk Weekly, getting some sushis, getting some good meals in. Let's put him on blast a little bit. Obviously not on blast, or whatever. Give me something on how that went. Give me something on what Stock Talk Weekly is in real life. I know he's a private guy, so we're not going to go doing whatever. But any jokes, anything like that you got to share from yesterday?
I think it was just a really fun time. We got some awesome sushi. Shout out Stock Talk, made the reservation. And then even though we got there 20 minutes late, talked them into letting us keep the reservation. So, we see him on here. I saw it in real life. He worked it, and then got us the better table too inside the restaurant. They wanted to put us at one table, got us the better table. So my man was hustling out there. Chad was there too, Duke, who kept him like satiristically, I don't know how you say it, putting up like bunny fingers over Stock Talk's head and telling me that I should take a picture and dox him like that, which of course I didn't do, which was hilarious though, that he just kept him doing the bunny fingers. He's like, now. So that was really fun. Aaron, the blonde broker, was there with us too. Yeah, I mean, anybody that saw at the beginning of the year, I posted my goal for this year was to meet 500 people from Twitter in person. It's really an experience that is so different from, we had spent hundreds and hundreds of hours talking on here, but now we've had other experiences. We've gone out and had drinks. We've gone out and had food. I just feel like it's going to, build a relationship that's going to last us, way longer than I think just the online one would. And I've met Evan in person, Stock Market News that's up here. So excited to meet Danny in person, when I get back to New York next. Yeah, that's just my goal. It's really cool to talk with people online, but I think it takes it to a whole nother level being in person.
Yeah, dude, next time you come through, we'll have a nice New York City apartment for you to come out and stay in. But Stock Talk, you unmuted?
Oh yeah, no, I just got back. Sorry, I don't know if I missed anything. I was dealing with my dog. He was being a little mischievous, but yeah, no, it was really fun. It was a fun weekend. We did some fun stuff, ate some good food. So yeah, it was great. It was great meeting Gov, and it was. I've met Aaron before several times, but it's the first time I met Chad as well. He was cool, and so yeah, it's nice. It's a weird thing meeting somebody you've known on social media for a while, and you meet them in person because you kind of have expectations about how they're going to dress, how they're going to look, and it's just always never meets those expectations. Not in a bad way, but it's just funny. It's always
Yeah, I was wearing sweatpants and a sweatshirt that were just like off colors. So if you were expecting anything based on dress, I did not perform there.
Nah, I was digging your style. I was into it. I was cool with it.
With the yarmulke, you were liking it?
With the yarmulke, yeah. Yeah, that was pretty awesome.
I would expect Gov to be dressing very preppy, no lie. But
well, you met me at the New York Stock Exchange. I wasn't gonna show up in my sweatpants.
Fair enough in general, but just through Spaces or whatever. Stock Talk, maybe Spaces for another time or whatever. Maybe we ask this question a little bit. I would love to know how you picture me coming dressed. I would love to hear how accurate it is. But one thing that you did miss while you were away, we kind of got a consensus on it. I'm sure you will think the same on it. But Roundhill, their Metaverse ETF, which was under the ticker Meta, META, they're changing it to METV. effective January 31st. And you tinfoil hat on, speculation. Obviously, we don't know if this is going to happen, but Facebook switching to Meta, delaying their ticker change, a lot just kind of seems to pointing in one direction. How important do you think having, for a company like Meta to have that ticker Meta, how important do you think that is for them to do that?
I mean, I'm sure they want it. I'm not sure if Roundhill did that to make room for them to do it. Did Roundhill make that ETF after the Facebook name change announcement?
Before the name change.
Oh, so they already had the Meta ticker.
Yeah, I can't imagine Facebook wasn't planning it out though. Maybe they were pissed.
But then why did Facebook? But why did So if they already had the Meta ticker, why did Facebook announce that they were going to change it to Meta as if they could just take somebody else's ticker?
So they announced they were changing it to MVRS, and the change was supposed to happen December 1st.
Yeah,
and then they delayed it for some reason into Q1, and I don't think they gave a full firm reason.
But so what are you implying, that Facebook paid them or convinced them to change it?
I think so. I think implying. I would say speculating more than implying. But that Facebook maybe came in and said, "We'll pay you this for the ticker." I don't know.
Yeah, that might be kind of like a URL thing. I don't know if that's against SEC rules or anything. I mean, I don't know if there's anything in the rules about that.
Why? I mean, I feel like it wouldn't be, because you can buy trademarks and patents off people.
I don't even mean it in that way. I just mean I've never heard of a company buying a ticker from another company. I've never heard of that.
Yeah, this makes a lot of sense, though.
Yeah, it does make. I mean, I completely agree with what you guys are saying. I think Facebook would probably want that ticker over MVRS. That's just a weird ticker. So, I mean, if I was Facebook, I'd want the Meta ticker. So maybe they did come to Roundhill and they were like, look, you got to, same way people buy URLs, I guess, similar type of thing.
I also think there's a lot of power to this with Facebook versus, so Roundhill, right? It's an ETF, it's going to draw a certain amount, but it's capped, right? Kind of at that upside. But with Facebook, I think turning your ticker into something that's very easy to say, right? It's a word. It can kind of become its own verb and thrown around. Also, a lot of people that are in the new generation use the word meta kind of ironically, and it gets thrown out there. It just generates a lot more brand recognition. Nobody can say MVRS basically as a word. They're only talking about a ticker, but now you're saying the company as well as the ticker. You're synchronizing those, and when somebody goes and as obviously we still think of it as Facebook now, but as they make that move into that larger company, I think having the word be also the name of your stock is very powerful. Has a lot of if they did buy it, I assume they probably put millions of dollars behind that.
If I'm Roundhill, that's a big search term for this thing. Just think of keywords. That is probably going to be one of the more searched ones. So if I'm Roundhill's perspective, I'm not giving that up lightly. I want that name. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think just based off, I think for Facebook, it's probably not as important because it's such a well-known company, and I don't think it's going to make a difference in the stock price depending on the ticker that they have. But, I think there probably will be a pop on ticker change just by virtue of psychology. Just people being like, oh my God, it's a new ticker, and just buying it on the day that it changes. So I might play the ticker change just for a little pop, but I mean, I don't know how. See, I would say it's probably more important for Roundhill to have a better searchable ticker than it is for Facebook. But I mean, whatever. I mean, it's a moot point anyway. It doesn't really matter. I mean, if they changed it already, they changed it, and I would imagine it has something to do with that. Did you guys look at this news that came out about Russia and the U.S.? Did you guys talk about that already?
No, we didn't. Let's get some Stock Talk Weekly to Stock Talk Weekly breaks news. I try to come up with a good name there. It really. Let's just pretend that didn't happen. Strike the record. I know we're recording too. I know we're recording that too. Let's just strike that 20. No, I'm kidding.
Evan, are you very pleased right now?
I am very. No, it's very pleasurable, I think was the exact one.
Okay.
So there's
just slapping you down, slapping down the haters. No Stock Talk though. Sorry.
No, you're okay. It's based on a report out of started with the Washington Post, I think. It's based on 3 U.S. officials who spoke on the condition of anonymity under ground rules established by the Biden administration. So I guess they're not allowed to say anything, but they did. They just said that we have information that indicates that Russia has already pre-positioned a group of operatives to conduct a false flag operation in eastern Ukraine. So for those who don't know what a false flag operation is, it's like when you sabotage your own military or your own infrastructure intentionally to create like a pretext for invasion. And so I don't know, it's a pretty convincing report to me. It doesn't look like it's just hearsay. It looks like it's pretty um there's a lot of detail in both of the articles that I read. So that will be interesting. If we get that next week, then that will be something else. I just think it's so funny how the last 2 years we've had, so much FUD. We've had COVID FUD, then we've had inflation FUD, then we had a rate hike FUD, and then we were back to COVID FUD, and then we were at government shutdown and default FUD, and then now we're back to like geopolitical instability FUD. So it's just funny that there's like always something on the table for people to be scared about. But that just kind of teaches you like how the market works. I think people who've been investing and trading for 5, 10, 15 years are familiar with that, because every year there's something on the table that's there to spook traders and investors. But I mean, we'll see. We'll see how next week goes. I mean, I definitely think it won't be good for the market if that does happen. It'll probably be good for oil, though. So, and maybe some of these defense contractor stocks. I might be looking to get. I mean, I didn't. These news came out kind of close to close today, but I'd be probably looking to get some calls on maybe Lockheed and a couple other defense contractors next week. I think that would be a good play.
So you kind of touched on it there. There's always there's always situations going on that, that have, a lot of different varying, terrible, whatever effects on the outside, but, affect the stock market in different ways. And, as investors, as traders, we kind of have to shape, what's going to work and what we're doing to fit those scenarios. So, when I hear something like that, obviously stuff has to kind of play out. We're just at a report, whatever. But when I hear that type of story, my simple brain goes instantly to those defense stocks as well. What are some other stocks that might be benefiting a little bit in that type of environment? I know you said oil stocks as well. Are there any other ones that kind of come top of mind?
Anytime you see geopolitical instability, I like going long oil. I like going long defense contractors, and I like potentially going long uranium stocks, depending on what the scenario is. If there's any kind of like talk about nuclear power, or keep in mind we have the FUD in North Korea as well, with the suspected development of their hypersonic missile program. So there's a couple things on the table. I would say uranium's probably my third choice out of those. It can work really well depending on where you have the geopolitical instability. If it's in a region where that's significant to uranium production, like we saw in Kazakhstan, then that definitely helps. But other than that, I mean, I like long oil and I like long defense contractors. In any of these kind of scenarios, that play tends to work out. And it depends on how long it lasts, right? If we just get like a little blip of bids in those names next week because of this, it may not last the whole week or anything, but I think it's definitely something to watch. These kind of things, I like trading catalysts and news because it's kind of like directional. You don't really, I'm not saying you don't need to look at the chart. You do need to look at the chart, but and you need to make sure your entry is at at least a decent support. But the good thing about these news and sentiment catalysts, or just general anything geopolitical, or just general news like that, it tends to work pretty well in terms of tradability. There tends to be at least an initial pop that you can sell into. So I'll be probably looking to do that next week. I wish I would have gotten some LMT calls today, but oh well. I'll look at those next week.
Awesome, dude. I'll definitely be looking into those as well. I think I do own a one of those defense names. I own Boeing, which is kind of one in there as well, and I own Raytheon are the two that I got in my portfolio. Not huge spots, but definitely in there for diversification. All right, we've been going for an hour right now, and I think that this is the perfect time to interject in. First of all, make sure you are following all of our speakers up here. I know Exclusive had a drop off, and Jay both did as well. Big shout out to them. Stock Talk has been on the spaces from the start. Second one, we started with a nice chat there. Make sure you're following him. You probably already are. Check out Wolf Financial, always doing amazing spaces. Danny, top class trader in here, and Bullish Rippers putting on amazing spaces, getting some good tweets out. Myself and Gav are associated on that account, so if you like us, you'll enjoy that account as well. But Gav, I would love to throw it over to you for a nice calendar shout out.
Great timing. I was literally just going through and finishing up the last of the DMs from yesterday because we had a lot of people that reached out and wanted to be on this calendar. So if you're in the audience and you're not already on it, this is the single best tool for finding the best finance Twitter spaces and being able to plan them into your schedule. So how does it work? Myself, Stock Market News and Stock Talk Weekly, the hosts up here, have all collaborated on a public Google Calendar. On this calendar, we put every single space that we're doing, who's going to speak at it, the topic, everything like that. And then afterwards, once the space is done, we actually will link back in the recording. So it's a one-stop shop for everything spaces related. And if you're thinking, hey, like I'm busy, I don't always find spaces. Sometimes you miss spaces, right? Because you're not on Twitter all day like we are. Because we don't have lives. We just sit on Twitter all day, but many of you do have lives. But you want to attend some of these spaces, and maybe you want to pick and choose because maybe you like the stock spaces, you like the crypto spaces, you like this and that. How can you know what everything is? Simply go into my DMs right now or Stock Market News, the host. Our DMs are wide open. Shoot us over a message and just say, hey, I want to be added to the calendar. And then make sure that your email is on there, preferably a Gmail. And that is it. It is completely free. There are thousands of people that are already on this. People who work at Twitter Spaces are on the calendar because they are jealous that they haven't figured out a tool like that. There's hedge fund managers, there's CEOs, people with 1 million followers, verified people. All different types of people are using the calendar to find Twitter Spaces and plan them into their schedules. So if you want to be better with your time, learn from the best, and now we're not calling ourselves the best. We're the host and moderator. Stock Talk, he's one of the best. Evan's pretty good. I love to moderate and host. We bring on some amazing speakers, and you'll be able to see exactly who's coming on in your schedule, updated at the beginning of the week. Once again, just hop into our DMs right now, shoot us over a message. It's free to join. We'll have you on it within 24 hours. And it doesn't even clog up your calendar because if you want on your Google Calendar, you can toggle it on and off to see when things are happening. So it's just a simple, easy tool that just hasn't been replicated elsewhere. And again, is completely free. And if you don't like it, you can unsubscribe for free at any time and it doesn't even send us a message. So it's a simple system and I think you're going to love it. So you might as well try it out at least for a week or two. And like I said, if you don't like it, feel free to unsubscribe, but I think you're going to really enjoy it. Evan, anything you want to add to that?
Nah, dude, that was super comprehensive. One of the best things that we have created. Make sure you're on it. You will not regret it. If you're in here, you clearly love spaces. So definitely something that you will not want to miss. Gav, I want to keep it with you, give you the chance to speak a little bit more. I know you had a pretty busy week outside of this stuff, but you are a newer trader. You've been doing this for a couple months now, almost a year. I don't know, maybe it's over a year around that time, really seriously. And you're doing it every single day, putting in a lot of work. And we love to come to you for what you're learning, lessons, and like to kind of hear how the pathway is. A lot of people take a step back. I kind of want to give you a shout out here. A lot of people on Twitter really love to kind of give the perception that they're expert traders just from the start. But the real reality of it is not everyone is that way. There's a lot of people learning and doing this stuff and getting better every single day. Even the best traders learn and get better every single day. But, on social media, what is really great is relatability. And, it's really relatable to kind of be on that pathway for learning. So I love to get these type of insights from you, Wolf, as you're getting on your journey to becoming a super expert millionaire trader. Anything that stands out as lessons that you've taken in the market the last week to whatever?
Yeah, definitely pretty early on in this journey. Have been investing for years, but more seriously as an active investor and trader for the last I would say probably like 6 to 8 months now. The first thing that I learned is that a majority of people are not profitable at this, right? If you're in the audience, I've had people DM me. They're like, "Hey, like I'm getting desperate. Like everyone around me is making money. Can I like pay you to teach me how to do this and all this stuff?" And what I'm telling people is the reason why it looks like everybody around you is making money is because the people that are making money flaunt it, and the people that are losing money don't, right? It's just a very simple economics. So really not falling into FOMO. Because I had in the beginning where I was looking at it going, all these people are making money, like all their picks must be great, right? And then I'm getting to the Discord and I started just blindly following stuff. And I did that for like a month and just realized I was just losing. And what I realized more of the process was that there's a lot more pieces that go into it than just buying something and it going up. The first thing that I realized was that the most important part of any trade is when you sell. It really is much more important than when you buy. Buying is the easy part. It's selling, because selling is really a mental determination of, are you going to be able to sell and cut losses? Are you going to be able to sell and take small profits and lock those profits in instead of having to chase the bigger picture? Are you going to sell half your contracts or a quarter of your contracts and let runners run? Are you going to sell and then move and roll up your contracts into another higher level? So I realized that selling was a really important part that I had to look at. Number two, I learned to do analysis from multiple angles. So I used to be, again, I would get a stock, somebody throw it over to me, I'd take a look at it and go like, it looks pretty good, chart's going this way. But now I go much more deep into it. The first thing I will look at is I'll pull up TrendSpider and I'll set, a number of different types of charting. I've been using more Fibonacci sequences, that Danny's been teaching me. I'm also using anchored VWAP very often, moving averages. I'm looking at price action and letting it lead me. I look for volume, momentum in different stocks. I look at the sector as a whole and I take a look back and say, okay, what's the ETF doing in this sector? So seeing, synergies between different stocks, different areas, sympathy plays, which I've been learning from Stock Talk. There's several different areas within that really has been factoring in. I also will look at the option flow consistently, right? Like if I come in and you just see that there's like, oh, wow, big people are coming in and hammering. Like they could be wrong, but if I already identified the stock and I found a good setup and there's people hammering it, that makes it a lot more comfortable for me to get in. So I'm kind of doing a multi-purpose approach analysis and also looking at the fundamentals, right? Like I will literally, Twitter's a great place to, do this. You can type in the ticker and then a lot of the people who I respect, and I follow them because I respect them, will come up first, right? And if they talk about that ticker, then I can see what their approach is in their analysis. And of course, Twitter Spaces, I think, a great way to learn about this stuff. I'm just blessed with the opportunity that I'm usually, able to ask a lot of questions on Spaces. So I'll just throw out throughout the week to people who I really admire their approaches, who have been very successful at this for decades. And I'll ask them, like, not just, give me your analysis on the stock, but then I'll pry into that analysis and be like, okay, well, why are you looking at that point? Why are you using that indicator? And try to understand the reasons behind why people use something. Because if somebody says, I use the RSI or I use MACD or I use this indicator, but you don't understand why they're using it, I don't think it's going to work for you so well, because it often ends up being a case-by-case basis. So you need to understand the background to why they're using it. Those are a lot of things that I've been picking up and learning. I've also learned that you don't have to place a trade every day. That can be a really stressful mindset when you're like, I'm trying to get in every day. Like I was so there. Like that was me for months. Say, I need to get in and place this trade today. I need to get out of it tomorrow or hold this one. I just think that is something that I've been able to move away from. Like I said, I placed maybe like 2 trades this week, right? Got stopped out at one. The other one was profitable. Good. Like we move on to the next week. Find the right market environments. I also kind of realized that although people, Exclusive was on here earlier, and Exclusive is a beast. Like there's a reason that guy went up like 5,000 followers this week, right? But not everyone's able to replicate that. He has had, so many systems, and he spends hours and hours like into the, the night and the mornings, like prepping his system. But not everyone's going to have those type of results. So you don't have to like chase and chase and chase. And then the last thing, because there's so much more that I've learned, is if you do the homework, it really does pay off. The best traders and investors that I've found sit down on the weekends and look through hundreds of charts. They create watch lists. They get everything prepared. So that way, when they go in and something triggers, they're not having to do the research then. They're moving quickly. They're not missing 10% of the move, which is literally all that they need in order to be profitable, right? Because they could get out because they already did the research. And when it triggers, they're like, cool, I know this shit. Like, I'm ready to go. I look at it like taking an exam, right? You don't show up to the exam, see the problem, and then try to do the research to answer it. You can't, right? It's not in the moment. It's an exam. You don't have access to that. You need to go, right? You're on a time limit. I see it the same way here. Do your homework ahead of time and understand the different tickers, understand the different movements, the different setups. That way, when it happens, you go, oh, I know that. I know the answer. And you can get in and get out if that's your thing. Of course, if you're doing long-term investing, there's different approaches. But yeah, that's definitely a good amount of what I've been learning.
That was fantastic. I love to hear it. That was one of the better ones we've had, Gav. So super excited to be hearing that. And I've definitely seen your journey and your growth here a lot. We've been talking a lot. You've been teaching me some stuff over in this trading area, and been hearing your use of the terms and definitely the performance following it over the last couple of weeks and months. So definitely some great advice there. Danny, I see you got your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say in regards to what Gav was just talking about, I think anybody in the audience who just caught what he just said, I think when the recording of this comes out, I think you need to go back to that section, clip it out, and listen to it a few times, because it's really important that what the process that God's been going through in terms of learning the different aspects is exactly what I see my more successful students do. Is they try a bunch of different things. They learn as much as they can, as early as they can. And what God will find, and anybody who's willing to, to spend time and put the effort in to learn how to trade will find, is that after doing that and continually doing that for 12 months, 18 months, continuously, you start to then weed out the things that don't resonate with your style of trading, that don't resonate with your trading psychology. You have to learn a lot of different things. You can't just work with one person and figure out one system, because that might not be the right system for you. And unfortunately, you're not going to know what the right system for you is until you try a bunch of them. And by trying them, not trying them for 1 week and saying, I took a few trades, it didn't work, let me try something else. No, you have to live with it for a few months. You have to try it and journal and figure out what you did right and what you did wrong before you figure out if that's the style that you're going to use. So I just want to applaud Gav, because being on the spaces, I could see already he's so much further along in his journey, but that's only because A, he's asking all the right questions, B, he's asking the right questions of the right people, and C, he's actually studying and doing the work and putting the work in that needs to be done to become a competent trader. So that should be a 6 to 7 minute little audio clip that you should listen to a few times. And anytime you feel like you're lost, or anytime you feel like, what's my next step, go back to that, figure out what part of that journey you're at, and take the next steps forward.
Thank you, Danny.
Yeah, would love to echo that. Definitely do agree. I mean, Danny, well, this space is being recorded on here. It will also be posted to other channels as well. Big shout out there for anyone who is kind of in here and maybe missed part of Gav's talking earlier. Yeah, I kind of just like a lot of people on FinTwit, a lot of people on social media always want to put on a persona, but the reality is relatability is a really huge factor on here, and it's a really strong factor as well. So I love to see Gav going on his pathway and growing there. But I'm going to keep us moving on the spaces. I won't keep us here for too much longer. I want to get us a little bit kind of focused on what's going to be happening next week, what we're looking that way. For any of you guys who do not know, the stock market will be closed on Monday. We talked a little bit at the beginning of the space, but yeah, Martin Luther King Day. And first of all, quick note, our Good Morning FinTwit spaces, which is normally Monday morning at 9:20 a.m. Eastern, will be moved to Tuesday at 9:20 a.m. Eastern. And then we also had another space Monday night that will also be moved to Tuesday, I believe. So Google
Wait,
Spaces
which
calendar. Whatever, just keep moving. Whatever, Google Spaces calendar, if you want to be 100% sure on it, that'll be sent out on Sunday, and you'll know for sure. I could have just spoken some.
Wait, what got moved to Tuesday night? We have the Tuesday night one that we always have.
Doesn't matter. We'll keep it moving. Slide quickly on from that. I'll keep us moving and pretend I didn't say it. Although,
definitely,
as Danny
I'll
just pointed out, it's recorded.
I'll just agree with you there. Anybody that I already got several DMs, if you're not on the Spaces calendar this next week, you're going to want to be on it. We already have 1, 2, 3, I think, spaces planned for Monday, and then we're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I think, planned for Tuesday already. So, like, the only way you're going to keep track of these things and get this knowledge is by honestly being on the calendar.
If you want to do that, DM myself or Wolf Financial your email, and we'll get you right on that. But won't harp on that too much for now. Quickly, so next week, shortened week. I know that has a lot to do with options and theta, 4-day week. There's only 4 days for that moves to happen, so weeklies are going to kind of lose that time value a little bit quicker. But overall, kind of, how does your strategies kind of change on a holiday shortened week? Danny, I would love to maybe know if there's any kind of, maybe specifically for next week, maybe in general, just kind of when we have a 4-day week, is there any way you kind of inherently change your trading strategy going into it?
Well, we have a 4-day week, and then we also have a lot of earnings next week as well. So I think certainly if I were to say a 4-day week with no major earnings, the only thing I would consider is maybe on Wednesday/Thursday, starting to think a little bit more about theta. But outside of that, my main focus next week are going to be the earnings. So it's kind of business as usual. like I said, this market is still very much in chop mode. So I'm just curious, to see, are we going to live with a little more of this volatility? And if we do, where are the opportunities? Obviously, looking at relative strength. And if the market starts to stabilize a little bit and tech starts to bottom, and of course, that bottoming process is not going to take a week. It's going to be at least a multi-week type of bottoming process. Where do we go from there? And honestly, what I think what will happen is banks will set the tone for next week for how the rest of earnings may go. And then really my eyes are going to be on when tech starts to do their earnings, right? So think about this. We're already going into earnings season with tech really weak. So what's going to happen if some of these names start reporting, underreporting numbers, missing estimates? It's not going to be really pretty. Now, one can say, okay, well, they've been selling off and they might be priced in, right? You would think that would be a logical way to think, but Wall Street's anything but logical. I can absolutely see bad numbers coming out and Wall Street seeing it as an opportunity to hammer them down even further so that they can stop people out, scoop up even cheaper prices before they inevitably send it flying back higher. So I think this is a really, really important earnings season for a lot of different reasons, least of which is Omicron and how that's going to affect this year. A lot of things going on this year. This is our first earnings season of the year naturally, and I think it's going to really set the tone for the year. So this is something we all should be paying very, very close attention to.
Definitely, you touched a lot on earnings there a little bit, and I'll quickly list down on some of the stocks that do report earnings next week. A good source to get this stuff. I don't really have any relationship with them. It's called eWhispers. Earning Whispers is the website. It's a great Twitter account to follow for all this stuff. They put out nice calendars and whatever. But a couple of stocks that report earnings next week, we have United Health, Procter Gamble, Bank of America, Netflix, Goldman Sachs, PNC Bank, Intuitive Surgical, Morgan Stanley, Union Pacific. So we're still not in the maybe the stocks that a lot of Twitter will care about necessarily, but definitely a good amount of stocks that do report next week. Stock Talk. Are there any of your actually personal long-term holds that report next week? And if not, are there any kind of earnings that you have a key on or you're watching or whatever?
I haven't really looked at the calendar for next week, to be honest. I was so occupied this week with trying to chase the themes, but I mean, I will be looking into it. I know you mentioned some. I just haven't looked at the calendar, but so I would need to check into that. But yeah, I do plan to play some of them. Again, remember, I don't ever play earnings themselves. I always play the reaction to the earnings. So, if there's some that I find interesting that dump, then I'll play the bounces on those. And if there's some that I find interesting that I think will rip, then I'll play the correction on those. But I don't ever play the actual report. I used to do that back in the day, but it burned me one too many times on those binary decisions. So I don't do that anymore. But yeah, if there are some that I find interesting, I'll be looking at the calendar this long weekend. I have an extra day. We have Monday to do some more studying. So I'll be hitting the charts and hitting the books this weekend anyway. So hopefully I'll have a couple more plays for next week. I was really waiting for, this week to come to a close to get all this, economic updates out of the way, CPI, PPI, the Fed speak. And so next week, I think things will trade a little bit cleaner, whether that's to the upside or downside. I just prefer when, the market trades clean and it's not this random sporadic volatility. So I think next week will be a clean trading week. And so, going into that, I'll look at the stocks that report, but yeah, I haven't looked at the calendar yet.
Yeah, you still got time, long weekend. Interestingly, I am looking now. There's a couple of notable companies, including Goldman Sachs, Schwab, Silvergate, a little less notable than the other one too, but still up there. PNC, et cetera, that actually report before the markets open on Tuesday. So that means they're going to be reporting earnings before the market opens again. So that's a little bit interesting. We normally like to get a little bit. I normally like to kind of. Sorry, lost the train of thought there. Normally, stocks don't like to report earnings after a long weekend or the before the markets open on a long weekend. So it's a little interesting for me to see that, but maybe I just don't see it too often. We are going to start moving over into the wrap-ups. We've been going for about an hour and 20 minutes. And as you can tell by my speech today, it's Friday. It's been a long week. It's time to kind of start resting and doing some other great stuff for the weekend. We got wild card weekend. Got some good football on tomorrow for any of you NFL fans. But that's totally off topic, besides the point, whatever. Yeah, I would love to throw us into wrap-ups, and I would love to start with Stock Talk Weekly. We just kind of talked a little bit about what you're watching for next week. Maybe anything personally you got going on. How is the Discord group going? Stuff like that.
Discord group is going great, man. We're kind of, working out the kinks as we go, but it's been really great to see, the community kind of come together. It's been really positive. There hasn't been any bullshit or name calling or nonsense on there. And so it's been really good to see the community kind of just function as a supportive community. And we've been dropping some great plays in there as well. So kind of something for everybody to trade. There's options trades in there, large caps, mid caps. We have small caps. We have penny stocks. I mean, we're trying to cover everything. ETFs. Yeah, I mean, I've really liked the way it's been going and hope to keep building that and working out the kinks over time. I'm going to be working on my first seminar over the weekend as well, which I'll be dropping on there for all the members. It's going to be basically how to build a master watch list and how to use that master watch list to sympathy trade and also trade trends. So it's something I do very often. I find it to be a very useful tool. I know it's a little bit old school for a lot of the people nowadays that just use scanners 24/7, but I enjoy using a big master watch list separated by sectors. I'm looking forward to it, and it works well for me, and hopefully it'll be helpful to some other people. So we'll have that seminar coming up. Then I have another seminar coming up on the technical tools I use and the way I set up my charts, and we'll have Pete Doom on that one as well. Danny, if you're available, I'd love to have you on that seminar as well. But we're going to have a couple of those technical seminars coming up. I'm also going to do one on how to scan a balance sheet, how to scan an earnings report, so that you can be efficient with your time, and that you can make reactive decisions based on SEC filings and earnings reports, which, for retail, it tends to be a problem a lot of the time because they're not educated enough to really discern the information in an ER or in a balance sheet, and they find themselves staring at it for hours or days and not being able to make a conclusion quickly enough in order to make a decisive trade on it. So we'll have a seminar on that as well. We have a lot of seminars coming up. Hopefully we'll have at least one every 2 to 3 weeks going forward. Not sure when the first one will come out. It'll depend on how long it takes me to set up, but just really enjoying educating new traders and building a sense of community. So yeah, that's been great. As far as personally, hung out with Gav this week, and that was awesome to see him and get to know him in person. Other than that, I mean, this weekend I'll probably be eating a couple steak dinners and just relaxing, just taking it easy on the long weekend. As far as next week goes, like I said, I'm going to look at the earnings calendar this weekend, see if I like any of the plays for potential move in either direction. And I'll also be watching Lucid going into that unlock. That's really my top watch for next week is Lucid. That unlocks on the 19th. So I will really want to see how that stock reacts. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, and I've sized my puts appropriately to where if I'm wrong, I won't, it won't kill me. So we're really looking forward to Lucid next week. Also looking forward to see if Tesla can keep this 1,000 level headed into next week as well. So yeah, other than those stocks that I'm always watching, I'll have a new list of stocks probably on Monday that I'm looking at for next week. Like I said earlier, with all this fun around Russia and the North Korea situation with their hypersonic missiles, I am looking at defense contractors. Like I said earlier, I like Lockheed Martin, I like Raytheon, I like General Dynamics. So LMT, RTX, GD, those are definitely on my list to watch in the next week. I'll be doing some charting on those this weekend to see what I think is the best technical setup for upside. And then I'll probably go long on whichever one of those names that I like the best on Tuesday morning. So that's my general plan so far, but I'm sure I'll have a few more tickers come Sunday and Monday.
So, gotta ask, what is your favorite cut of steak? You let me down the question.
I mostly always either go with a ribeye, or if I can get it, a rib cap, preferably a bone-in ribeye. But yeah, I'm all about
medium
that.
rare plus.
Yeah, medium rare plus. Yep. That's what I always do because I like it. I mean, if I'm at a really nice steakhouse, I'll just go outright medium rare. But if I haven't been there before, I always go the medium rare plus because you get a touch more fire on there, and it's not too rare. But yeah, I'm always in that category. Ribeye for sure if I had to pick.
Love it, love it. I can't definitely disagree with that one. Yeah, no, excited to always have you on these spaces, Stock Talk. New year. Love that we're still doing these together. Yeah, Danny, keep it moving. I would love to throw the same question over to you.
Yeah, 10-4 on the ribeye. In fact, if you find yourself in the New York City area, there's a steakhouse called Hillstone. There's a couple of locations. I go to the one in Midtown, and they do this Hawaiian ribeye. They marinate it in, I think it's soy sauce and pineapple juice for like 48 hours. It's like it melts. It's so delicious. For me, yeah, I have.
Danny, you ever go to Peter Luger's?
Oh, of course. I'm a Brooklyn boy, so I've been to Peter Luger's many, many times. It's definitely
Okay,
a
I love it.
solid piece of steak. That's
Sorry,
your good old
cutting you off.
porterhouse.
Dude, that and Bryan and Cooper's, some great New York steakhouses. But sorry for cutting you off, man.
No, quite all right. I could talk steak all day, every day. I don't go out too much for steak. I actually like to cook, so I'll usually do my own steak. But yeah, so for this weekend, I mean, for me, I haven't really touched charts yet. I generally start that first thing Saturday morning. We do have the long weekend, but for anybody that doesn't follow me, I usually put out about 30 to 35 weekly charts on Twitter and also my Instagram. If you go to my Instagram, actually, it's just all charts. So if you just looking for charts, that's probably the better place to go. But yeah, I mean, for this weekend, I'll start my work tomorrow morning. Run my scans, very similar to what Stock Talk was talking about. I have a master watch list that I look at, I scan off of, and I'll visually go through a few hundred charts just really quickly. And what's my process is a little interesting. I don't even look at the name. I just look at the chart. So I kind of focus my eyes on what I'm actually looking at on the chart and not necessarily trying to get biased with what the company is or who they are. And then when something interests me, I stop. And then I just dissect it a little more and I add it to like a preliminary list. And then once I'm done going through my visual scan, then I'll go back and I'll start really dissecting the charts. How are they setting up on the 30-minute? How are they setting up on the daily? And of course, what they look like on the weekly chart. So yeah, I mean, I look forward to doing that. I always do that Saturday morning, and that's usually the process that I start. Actually, Sunday, heading out of town, heading to Florida for a week to visit the family, come back to New York, and then I'm actually just booked a trip to Puerto Rico for next month. So I'm really looking forward to escaping this shitty cold weather that we've been having. I think it's going to be like 20 degrees tomorrow, low of maybe like 12 in New York. So definitely not looking forward to that. But yeah, I mean, I'm just, I kind of go with the flow. I'm not super into trading one way or doing this or doing that. I have my system. I stick to it. Like Gav was saying earlier, if a trade presents itself and you're prepared for it and you have a plan, take it. But jumping into random trades, especially when the market is really choppy, like Stock Talk was talking about, that's just a recipe to lose money and blow up accounts. So it's not what I'm about. But I do love to enjoy myself. I do love to travel. Prior to the pandemic, I've traveled like I would be out of the country every month. But I feel a little creatively isolated and intellectually isolated to a certain degree staying at home. So I'm really looking forward to saying screw you Corona and just getting back to traveling this year and visiting my friends from overseas. And yeah, I mean, I think being a full-time trader, it really allows you to be able to travel like what Gav has been doing and going to different places and still being able to kind of do what you need to do. And in reality, like for me, the stuff that I do for now, like that's on a day trading side, I'm up, 2-3 hours before the market opens. I run my morning scans. I find what looks interesting, any news events, any earnings coming up, any upgrades, downgrades. I set up 4 to 6 plans, and whatever executes in that first hour and a half to 2 hours, I'm in and out. And by 11 o'clock, I'm pretty much done trading. And if anything, I'll walk away from the screen and do my thing. Lately I've been doing a lot of writing. So usually between 12 and 1, that's my sacred hour to write. Social media is usually off and I'm writing. And that's for me, a good outlet to kind of get my thoughts out on paper and clarify, what I'm thinking. So I do that every day, and I would highly recommend anybody, whether you're a writer or not writer, just writing, journaling is really, really cathartic and really, really fundamentally good just for brain health and psychology health. So, but yeah, I've been rambling. So anyway, it's 5:30 here. Definitely gonna open up a bottle of scotch and pour myself maybe a finger or two and chill out for the evening and look forward to this cold ass winter that we're going to have tomorrow. So appreciate always the invite and always great chatting with you all up here, and definitely certainly appreciate everybody in the audience. Make sure you're giving every one of these people up here a follow. It's well deserved, and have a great long 3-day weekend. We'll catch you back in the markets on Tuesday.
Sorry, I had to get back, Danny. Thank you for that. I've actually been seeing you grinding on your Instagram a good bit, so definitely check out Danny on there. It's difficult, honestly, to get people over from Twitter to Instagram, but if you're on there and you do enjoy seeing that stuff on your feed, definitely do go over and give his Instagram a follow. Gav, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, just real quick. I wanted to give a shout out to Joey, who we have up here too. He's been helping out a lot with the Wolf account this week when I was hosting on Rippers. If anyone didn't see, we started 2 new series for Rippers this week that are going really well. We did long-term investing as well as Power Hour for the first day of the week, and then long-term investing on Thursdays. And because I'm on that account, Joey's been coming in on the Wolf account, so we can have that in the space too. So big shout out to him, and just want to thank him. So we got him up here as a speaker, and yeah, he's a pretty smart dude, Joey.
I was just about to go to him. I would love to sorry for cutting you off there, Gav, but I did want to kind of ask Joey a question, if that's cool. I want to get the tea. What is Gav like as a boss? Give me something in there. Give me something about him, or what's it like working with Gav?
Pretty terrible, as you can imagine. Very controlling. Gov's a great guy. For everyone who is on these Wolf spaces, he really is as advertised. He's a great guy, very easy to work with. So nothing but love and respect for Gav. He's a great dude, and ton of respect for what he's doing. And he's building an incredible, community with the Wolf Pack and some great people in the audience. It's really cool seeing a lot of the same people over and over. So nothing but respect for what Gav's doing, and definitely a great guy. Definitely excited to meet him in person sometime for sure. So yeah, all
Isn't
good
that crazy that we haven't met in person ever?
I know, man. Definitely long overdue. I know you're a bit of
over
a world traveler.
We've been working together.
I know you're a bit of a world traveler now. I know you're a busy man, so but definitely one day, man. Definitely want to make that happen for sure.
Love it. Definitely a good follow. Maybe everyone make sure you're checking out Joey. He's doing some great stuff, helping out Wolf, and a lot of cool stuff on the back end. Definitely a good follow. But Wolf, I'll throw it back over to you if you want to. If there's anything else you want to add in for.
Yeah, I'll give one more shout out. Because I'm going to send it out right now. Almost forgot about this. I should. I've been traveling today, but I just sent out the weekly newsletter, which was actually written by the King, Joey. Joey wrote our weekly newsletter this week. I think it's actually the best newsletter that we've put out. This was issue 18. We grew pretty nice this week. We have over 2,200 subs now on the Wolf newsletter. If you go into our bio right here, it's literally it's through Twitter, so you can see it on here. It's awesome. I really, really like this one that Joey put out. Basically, we highlight, so me and Joey are all the time on Twitter. We see thousands and thousands of tweets a week. And, he's been really doing a great job on this newsletter. So highlighted 10 of the best tweets of the week that we had seen. We had a ton of new people as well in this week. So you can come in here and just see tweets on, stock analysis. We've got humor, finance humor. We've got just, 5-star all around tweets on motivation, leadership, stuff like that. So if you, really do enjoy good tweets and you want to see quality content, It's like a 3 to 5 minute read. We send it out every Friday, typically around this time or a little bit earlier in the day. And big props to Joey for writing that. So I just sent it out. It went out to thousands of people. It's completely free. You can always feel free to join just by literally going into our bio and just clicking inside of our bio. But yeah, big shout out to Joey for that as well.
100%. I actually literally just got the email as you were speaking there. Wolf Financial Newsletter is a great, easy read. 10 posts. You can look through it, go through it, in 2 minutes? And it's really kind of entertaining, educational, and it's super informational as well. So it's definitely a great checkout. But big shout out to that. Big shout out to Bullish Rippers, the green raccoon that is up here, a must follow. I talked about this a little bit earlier. Gav is going to be doing a lot of spaces from there, helping out. I'm going to be doing some spaces from there as well, and be tweeting a bunch. Just a lot of really cool things coming. So if you're still in here, you enjoy spaces, it's clear that account is 100% a must follow. Green Raccoon, big shout out to them. Big shout out to Danny, Stock Talk, Joey, Wolf, everyone for coming in here and making this possible. Everyone, don't forget the stock market is closed on Monday. Hope you all have a really refreshing, recharging 3-day weekend, and get ready to come back 9:20 a.m. Wait, I see God. What hand up?
I actually have one other pretty cool announcement that I did want to share because I got this confirmed and I've been working on this for like 2 or 3 months now, and I got confirmation today. So it's not what you think, Evan. It's something smaller. I'll have bigger confirmations very soon. But okay, so I got on the phone today with one of my friends who works at Twitter Spaces. He's their lead for customer feedback at Twitter Spaces. He used to run the Twitter Spaces account. So he had been gone for like all the holidays and everything. But I finally got him verbal confirmation today, and he sent me a calendar invite that he is going to come next Thursday. So basically in a week from now, he's going to come on Spaces with me at, I think, 3:30 p.m. EST. And he's going to do a one-on-one live interview with me where he talks about the entire backstory to like how Twitter Spaces even got formed, what it was like building the team, what their future plans are. He's going to give us inside analytics and a bunch more stuff. So I just was pretty excited to get confirmation of that and him send me a calendar invite. I also, for anybody that's on Android who's been having problems, I gave them a boatload of shit about that today. Here, let me just read the message back real quick that I got from the person at Twitter Spaces. They said, "I wish you could hear my deep sigh. I have not received an update from the dev team, but I'm going to bump this again today and tomorrow until I get something useful back." Then I went to another person on their team and had them bump it too. So I really am trying. Like, obviously I switched over to iPhone. I just had to. But I am trying hard to get that fixed for people that are on Android. But yeah, it's been great chatting with the Spaces team. They clearly care a lot about what they're doing. So I'm going to continue trying to bring that stuff to the forefront, just getting inside information for you guys.
Awesome. Excited to see how that comes along. Love to see Mr. Spark program in there grinding for all of us out there. If you guys didn't know what the Spark program is, Twitter's doing a thing with Twitter Spaces, getting a couple people on to really grind and help them build out the Spaces product, talk a little bit with the team, and get a bunch of cool stuff in there. And, Gav, his 40 hours a week, totally earned being in that program. So 100% a cool thing there. Truthfully, there is something in the crowd that I do want to say something, but Friday, we're going to have a good end of the week. Keep it nice and happy and excited. Stock Talk, I see you're unmuted. Was there anything there? No, I think we're chilling. Wolf, I do think you know what you're going out there, but some things are best left on the side.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday,
let's get
everyone.
to it. Wrap-ups?
Right. Thank you, everyone. See you all back here Tuesday morning at 9:20 a.m. Eastern. And yeah, everyone have a great weekend. Thank you all for showing up.
Yo, follow Stock Market News, though, if you aren't already. Best follow on Twitter. That's all I got.